Hey everybody, welcome back to the Comic Wall. It's me, the Outcast Angel, and today let's talk about issue 182 of The Walking Dead, The Commonwealth Grows. And guys, it really is growing. Not only have we discovered one of the biggest communities to date in this series, but all our known communities, the Hilltop, the Sanctuary, Alexandria and Oceanside, they're all possibly going to be merging with this bigger community, and that's just going to open up, to me, I think that's going to open up a whole new door of possibilities and just story, to say the least. I mean, I'm pretty excited about this because it's just going to be huge. Anyway, now in the way of covers, we have this beautiful portrait variant by Bill Seinkiewicz of Maggie, and guys, I have to say, Lauren Cohan, Maggie in the TV series, she is so gorgeous. She is my like #1 girl crush, and I just love her so much. Anyway, getting that out of the way, I guess it's time for the traditional issue posting on my wall. And so, of course, we still have like 3 issues. Well, after this one, 2 issues worth for this line, and then I have the rest down here, and you'll be seeing me post those up. So what I usually do is when I put my comics in the bag and board, there's this little space of cardboard left up here, and so what I do is I just get a thumbtack like this, and I just push it through the cardboard. It doesn't touch the comic, and the comic stays safe. It stays safe, stays dry and clean. And so, like, I know some of you have mentioned, like, oh, I wouldn't do that, you know, but hopefully this gives you a little more insight into that, you know. And so the comic's safe and everything, and so what I do is, since I have this space right here, I just put it up next to the last issue and as close as I can, and then push it up as close as I can to the one on top of it, and I just push that pin right through, and it's safe, it's done, and it looks amazing. Anyway, jumping in, we meet back with John and the Saviors in what looks like a garden. It looks like they've really got a good setup going on for them, and John is surprisingly optimistic and positive, you know, and turns out he's more driven as a leader. Like, he's wanting to get things done. He's talking to this kid, Christopher, about working better with the other communities, and that surprised me especially after these two issues where Sherry, the previous leader of the Saviors and the ex-wife of Dwight, led kind of a march on Alexandria, armed with guns and everything, to kind of show Rick, hey, we're not your dogs, you can't just be making us do everything, which he really wasn't. It's not like how Negan was in any sense, you know. John's been pretty optimistic, to say the least, and we see him here talking about, you remember Negan's way, and everyone was scared, no one was happy. His way was to take, and that made enemies, and nobody wants to go back to that. And we see, I forgot his name, I think it was like Alex or something, who, he was the second person to get his face burned by Negan and his iron, Dwight being the first. And if you remember in this issue, he was one of the only ones to kind of bow back to Negan when Negan confronted this group that was doing this kind of pointless march, you know. And so he knows John's talking about him, and you know, he's a little ashamed by what he's done. Anyway, we see Rick and Pamela and the rest of the little tour group going on show up to the sanctuary, and they're greeted by John, and he brings them in, you know. He wants to hear more about who they are. I mean, he's a little untrusting at the moment, but then he warms up to them right away. Pamela's talking to him about, like, the Commonwealth, like what it is, what their goal is, which is to ultimately, we'd like to retake the country and the world, which is a pretty big goal, to say the least. Anyway, John's on board with that. His last line in this issue is just, I'm all about making friends now, you know? Honestly, it's just really surprising to me. Now, I'm a little disappointed with this part where Rick meets up with Pamela again, and they're still at the sanctuary, but she wants to hear more about Negan and how everyone's been so scared of him, you know? And so, you know, Rick tells her, but we don't get to hear that. We don't get to see her reaction and see how she responds to that whole deal, you know? I mean, we got to see more of like the governor in this issue, or this issue, one of these two, and we got that story in there, but we didn't get this one. Anyway, the next day or next couple of days, Rick and the tour leave the sanctuary, and we get this conversation between Rick and Dwight, in which they're, you know, kind of apologizing to each other, being straight up and saying, you know, like, sorry, I was a dick. And just with the fact that Rick's been kind of busting Dwight's balls the last few issues, you know, it's good to see him, like, you know, opening his arms to him, well, in a sense, you know. And while Dwight was being a bit of a dick after, like, this issue where, well, these few issues after Sherry died, he was pretty angry with Rick, but, you know, it wasn't his fault. But now he's trying to, you know, turn that around, and he gives credit to Laura. And while Dwight goes off with Laura, Rick has this look on his face, and he looks a little sad, like he's like realizing, wow, I'm still alone, you know, and especially after Andrea died, just, Anyway, now we see them come up to the kingdom, and I'm a little sad by this because we didn't get much of a tour of the kingdom, you know. It's like we got to see more of the sanctuary, but we only get like one page of the kingdom. And so the new leader of the kingdom, I forgot his name for the life of me, I'm sorry, and he's like, you know, giving Pamela the tour, saying, welcome to the kingdom. The name made a lot more sense when we had a tiger here. And she's like, did he say a tiger? And well, Rick tells her about Ezekiel, saying like, well, Ezekiel had a tiger. They're both no longer with us. Anyway, as you can tell by my shirt, I'm wearing my Ezekiel has a tiger shirt in honor of this issue, because it was just too good not to. And Pamela seems really impressed by this. She's really liking what she's seeing so far. And so after they leave the kingdom, we see this conversation between Rick and Officer Mercer, and they're kind of talking about how it works at the Commonwealth. Like Rick, like how Rick says I was a police officer in a sleepy rural town. You're saying if I came to the Commonwealth, I'd only be allowed to hassle rowdy teenagers and give the odd speeding ticket. And Mercer's just like, yeah, something like that. And so we find out more about Mercer here. He is a Marine. And he was on leave when all this stuff happened with the zombies and everything. And so he's always wondered, like, what happened to his brothers and sisters in arms, you know, who weren't. And so Rick's being a bit of a smartass here, saying like, so you're saying you'd rather be a florist, but they won't let you? But, you know, he's happy with his role. He says, I'm happy busting heads and saving lives. It's just there are others not really living life to the fullest, you know? And so hopefully we see a little more of the Commonwealth's kind of broken social structure change, hopefully. Now they make it to the Hilltop, and if you guys remember, after the Whisperer War in this arc right here, the Hilltop was practically burned to the ground. And so throughout this whole deal, this one is the end of the Whisperer War. What is it? 162. We're already on 182. That's already 20 issues, and by the time Rick and the others make it to the Hilltop, they've practically almost completely rebuilt, and Rick is absolutely blown away by this. So they're greeted by Maggie and Dante, and you know, they're happy to see each other, especially after all the crap that's gone on, you know. And so this is where Maggie finally meets Governor Milton. And so as they're you know, introducing themselves and everything, we get this just adorable reunion between Rick and Carl, and I'm so happy for this. I was waiting for Rick and Carl to get the chance to be together again, at least for a little bit, you know? And so while Maggie is giving Pamela and the others the tour, Rick is sitting down with Carl talking about how you know, while they've been on this tour, it was the first time that he realized it wasn't at the front of his mind about losing Andrea. And so I think that's good, because that keeps him going, and that keeps him from being depressed and sad, you know? And so Carl points out a really interesting detail here. Rick's not using his cane anymore. And so he says, Rick says, I don't know if my leg healed more or what. The pain went away, or else I got used to it. But no, I don't feel like I need it anymore. But you know, he's still a little slow. Anyway, I think I don't know how to feel about that, because I feel like Rick's cane was starting to become a little more ideal, or symbolic to his person, you know? Now we see this scene where Maggie is, where Pamela and her little tour committee, I guess, of the Commonwealth, or representation of the Commonwealth, I mean, are meeting with Maggie, and they're talking about, you know, they're just getting to know each other a little bit better. Excuse me. And Maggie's being a bit of a bitch, to be honest. She's saying, like, what are we talking about here? Trade routes, sharing our knowledge, or your picture on the wall in every living room, and every morning before school we pledge allegiance to the uptight woman who smiles too much. And Pamela's kind of just like, please just say it's more of the first option. And then she realizes, like, I never knew someone could smile too much. You know, I just feel bad for her. She's trying to be good, you know, but Maggie's being a total bitch. And so Rick kind of steps in, saying, Maggie, please, you're being rude. And Maggie's like, really? I'm being rude? And so Rick mentions how Michonne is still there at the Commonwealth, and Maggie automatically jumps to the word, saying, still there, as in taken prisoner? And Pamela's like, still there, as in her daughter, Elodie, has been living there happily for years, and Michonne chose to stay behind with her. And I love this scene because everyone's shocked by that news. They're like, holy crap, it actually happened, you know? And so this kind of changes Maggie's mind in the way that she's like, okay, so you're headed there tomorrow? You report back to us. I trust you, Rick. If the Commonwealth passes your smell test, the Hilltop stands with you. And so yeah, that's pretty good. I'm happy that she, you know, changed her attitude right away. Anyway, in this next scene we see Eugene kind of leading a horse and carriage, I guess, and we see the Commonwealth soldiers packed up in the carriage, and turns out that this was Eugene's idea. He figured they could move quicker if the soldiers weren't on foot, you know? And we see all these tools packed up behind them, and Eugene's like, don't make me ruin the surprise. What is he working on? Anyway, as they're heading to the Commonwealth, Pamela invites Rick to join her in her carriage, and so she actually asked about his son, about what happened to his eye, and you know, Rick tells her, and Pamela has the wrong idea, kind of. She's like, we've had our fair share of conflict in our time as well, but we've never had children on the front lines. Like, we were always able to keep the fighting at a safe distance, but of course we didn't really have that luxury, as Rick says. And Pamela reaches over and grabs Rick's leg, saying, well, hopefully those days are behind us, or behind you now. And I'm hoping there's like, you know, this cuteness between them is possibly signs of you know, flirting, or some some kind of potential between the two of them getting together. And so Pamela's like, I'm impressed, there's no doubt about it, you're Commonwealth material, we just need to bring you over to our way of thinking. And Rick's like, or bring you over to ours. And Pamela's like, you're going to be trouble, aren't you? And of course Rick says, hopefully not too much. And I'm loving this where the story is going, because it's just I can't wait for Rick to show up to the Commonwealth and hopefully, you know, see how it really is, you know. And so before I end, I was actually lucky enough to get another letter printed in this series. And for me, this is hard because, you know, I'm sure everyone writes into The Walking Dead, but I've only ever had 3 letters printed. I had 2 letters printed kind of back to back almost 2 or 3 years ago, and that was in this issue 143, and this one, issue 141. And then recently I had another one printed in, where is it? This one, issue 178, and that was like fairly recently, like 5 months ago almost. And so now I finally have another one to add to that tally, I guess. And so I start with, hey Walking Dead team, this issue was a blast. I was more excited for Rick and Pamela to meet than I was when Rick first met Gregory or Ezekiel, which no one cared about Gregory. Also, I absolutely love how you threw in the awkwardness of Pamela's title and having Rick tell her about his history with the governor. That was great. So now we know Pamela stepped up to the plate after the original leaders died, got taken out, or disappeared. What does that mean exactly, and how did she end up where she is now? I don't think we ever got to hear what she did before the world ended. And Sean Mackiewicz, the editor of the series, says, was she actually a governor before? She would have had to be a politician at least to be where she is now, right? I'm curious too. And Robert Kirkman's just like, stay tuned. And so I finished with, like, I loved how Rick freaked out when he saw Michonne's sword. That was fantastic. Can't wait for next issue. See you then, blah blah blah. And so yeah, I'm very happy I was able to get another letter printed this time. So anyway, that's the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, drop a like, show the love, hit that subscribe button to get more of my videos, ring the bell to get notifications of when I post new videos, so that way you guys stay updated and don't miss out. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.